It is good night, Qatar. And in case you haven't figured out one half of the final, yes, Wheels, it is Argentina. They are going to the final of 2022 Qatar. Andy Petrollo, Jordan Wilson, Oliver Platt, and Gareth Wheeler with you. Argentina defeating Croatia by a score of 3-0. And as much as we're going to dive into Argentina and what they did, and Alvarez, that was fantastic as well, especially that second goal for Argentina. What an effort by him. It was like pinball as well in Croatia's 18. It was ridiculous how every time they tried to clear it, it ended up back on his boot. But here's the thing, guys, it's Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi is now once again going to a final. Lionel Messi, as we know, this will be his last World Cup. Lionel Messi now has a chance to retire as one of the, if not already, I know you can argue, but I'm talking about across the board trophies from Copa America to World Cup. He'll have a chance to add to all those other wonderful things that he has. Ollie, do you feel like this is a man on a mission when you look at the way he's performing in this World Cup compared to, let's just say, even 2014 when they made the final then?
Yeah, and then some. I think he's been much better than he was in 2014, and we're watching a genuinely historic individual performance, I think, from Lionel Messi that can be compared to some of the great World Cup individual performances we've seen down the years. Maradona in '86 obviously being the obvious one. I think it's right up there what he's doing right now, and it's the wonderful thing about this game. I think that in an era where athleticism is so important, pressing, physicality, structure, all of these different things, everything's to the finest detail now in football. You have this 5'7", 35-year-old wandering around. He spends most of the game walking, and he's still the most influential player on the pitch by an absolute mile. I thought he was incredible again today. It's not just what he does with the ball. The third goal is obviously absolutely spectacular in terms of the assist for Alvarez there. But it's just his mere presence, like his gravity in the game, I think forces defenders into bad decisions. And you can see that on the first goal when Gvardiol, I think, should really follow Alvarez. And it looks like he's sleeping. I don't think he is sleeping. I think he's worried about Messi, who's over his shoulder and doesn't move as a result of that. So his influence on the game is incredible. And yeah, I think what we're watching is something that will go down in history here in terms of individual performances at a World Cup.
Well, I guess that's just it, Wheels, when you look at individual performances. So right now he's actually leading the Golden Boot race. So both he and Mbappe have 5 goals, but he has the 3 assists. Mbappe has 2. Messi has now tied Maradona for most World Cup assists since 1966 with 8. That's overall. And he's now Argentina's leading goal scorer at a World Cup. What are you seeing from Messi?
Well, another moment for his highlight reel, and it came through an assist on the third Croatia goal, the stop and go against the best center back at this World Cup. Still a player who's not even close to his prime in Gvardiol, but like that moment by Messi will live there with the Iran goal in 2014. There are now quintessential Lionel Messi World Cup moments, just like there has been for Diego Maradona. But Golden Boot, Golden Ball, none of this matters unless he comes away with winning a World Cup. The pressure is still there. I feel like we're finding ways that we're trying to justify Lionel Messi, the best player of all time. Like, look, that argument's already been made. This is just incredible what he's doing with a much more well-balanced team. And that's what I think is putting the spotlight that much more on Messi, the fact that the team around him is excellent. They've lost one of their last 42 games. I think Scaloni, the manager, got it right by adding the player to the midfield, completely nullifying the Croatian midfield in that game for long stretches, not entirely, but for long stretches. And the fact that now Lionel Messi doesn't have to do it by himself like he has done in previous World Cups makes him look that much better. So those moments that Ollie mentions when he's walking around the field or maybe not doing too much, these are the times where he gets to save his energy so he can go on and do something special the other way. Everything's just coming together nicely. The fan support, the draw, just everything's kind of worked out for this Argentine side since that absolute shock in the first game of the tournament.
Yeah. Jordo?
My quick chime is that in 2014, Messi was by far the most talented player. But now in 2022, he's taking over games. Like, he's consistently been taking over games and putting himself in positions to affect change, and whether that be an assist, a goal, or just a little bit of brilliance that he's needed, This guy, people want to talk about comparison to him and other players, specifically CR7. Just appreciate him for what he is doing at 35 years old for his country. Like, it looks like sometimes Guardiola is not. He's probably one of the best defenders at the tournament, and he's stopping and starting, and it looks like he's playing at recess. Like, Messi is unbelievable. He's outrageous. The way that he's showing up for his team time and time again, it's just something to be watched. Like, it's unbelievable.
Although this game, at least according to our boy Wheels, is out without a little bit of controversy here. Come on, Wheels, tell me, do you think that Messi should have stepped up to take that penalty?
Well, first off, Argentina were thoroughly dominant in this game. Like, they had an XG of 3.09 to just 0.52. Croatia were poor in this game. Argentina were excellent from start to finish. But the opening penalty that was given, it's 50-50 for me. And that obviously turned the tides of the game. Argentina scored first in every game. Croatia has not. In fact, lead this tournament only leading for 46 minutes. But Livakovic comes out on Alvarez, and he makes himself big. That's what goalkeepers do in that moment. And Alvarez kind of weakly puts the shot, not hard enough. It looks like it's wide of target. And he comes barreling through the goalkeeper, and is called for obstruction. I understand by the laws of the game why that would be a penalty. I just think it's exceptionally harsh. The language in the laws of the game is very vague when it comes to impeding a player. Livakovic had a right to go to that area to try to make the stop by virtue of him not getting a piece of the ball. Then he's called for obstruction in that time. I just think that we can see that play out on a regular basis in the game today. Sometimes it's given, sometimes it's not given. Look, I'm not going to be someone here that say absolutely not a penalty, because I get it. I just think at that stage, in that moment, a call like that is exceptionally harsh. Croatia from that time, it's a big ask them to come from behind yet again in a game like this against this Argentina side. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one here, but to me, it's a little bit harsh.
Ollie, what is your take on that?
I thought it was a penalty personally. I know it's harsh, but I think, some penalties are harsh, right? They're not all egregious, glaring errors. For me, it's the goalkeeper comes to the ball, gets beaten to it. I don't really care that the ball's gone. He's still tried to play it and hasn't. He's played the player instead. Foul, obstruction. I think it's a penalty all day personally.
Jordo, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think so as well. It is harsh looking at it, but I also think with Alvarez is when he touches it, let's say Vukovic doesn't touch him, he can maybe still get around him and get to a goal scoring opportunity.
He was going left.
He gets hit,
put the ball
but he
right.
gets hit though. Regardless, we're going to talk about, but he gets hit. So I feel like it's enough to call a pen. I'm screaming for it if I'm an Argentinian fan for sure, because he's about to shoot and he does get a shot off, but he does get hit after. I think it's
I get it, Jordan. Just having played the game, I think, and you play the game. If you're a player and you come through a full stop, it's not as if the goalkeeper kept on barreling through and made no contact. He elected to stop in that moment. For me, if the goalkeeper continues all the way through and makes contact with the player, doesn't come away with the ball, obvious penalty all day, every day. But the fact he stopped, he did not try to play the player. He tried to play the ball. Look, that's why the laws of the game, I think, need to be a little bit more clear in the way they state things like this, because I don't want to see penalties play such a huge role in the game when they're given. And just when it's not based upon a mistake or a glaring error, I just think that has too big of an effect on the game. And this one certainly did. Look, it's not the reason why Croatia lost in this game. It's just one of those moments that could have gone either way, really.
You know whose side I'm going to take on this one. I feel like they take everything away from the goalkeeper now. You're not allowed to jump up and put your leg up. You're not allowed to protect yourself because everything is considered hurting the player. What do you want the goalkeeper to do? And then you yell at them when they let the goal in.
This is rich coming from the goalkeepers who get a free kick for the slightest touch when they go up to claim a ball.
Hey, they're in the most danger on that pitch. But guys, I'll come back to you here, Ollie, because heading into this tournament, the two favorites were Brazil and Argentina. There's this really strong belief that the cup is going to go back to South America. Is Argentina showing that to you? Whether they take on France or Morocco, we'll preview that game coming up. Does this feel like a team that's kind of destined to win it?
I wouldn't go that far yet because I think Morocco have been their own challenge. We've seen that, and I still think France are a very, very good team. So I think the final is going to be extremely difficult for them. Argentina obviously have an excellent chance now to win the World Cup. They're a very solid team with an outstanding player playing as well as anyone in the world. And you saw today, Croatia just made just a couple of errors, I think, that they haven't normally made at this tournament in terms of getting caught a little bit in transition, which is very unlike them, particularly on that second goal. And Argentina went and punished them, okay, in very bizarre style in terms of the Alvarez goal, but punished them nevertheless. So they have the ingredients to win the World Cup. I don't think it's destiny. I don't think it's done. The final is going to be a very competitive game, but they're right there for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Jordo?
All I want to say is that Croatia, I think their demise today was just accumulation of all the games that they played for 120 minutes. Like when you have to go and play perfect football defensively, or at least keep a team maybe in punching distance with only a goal scored, it's very difficult. It's a tall order to ask. You look at the goals, Argentina just looked like they had a bit more energy, and that luck just needed to be swayed a little bit their way, and it was going to be their game from the beginning. Now, I just want to take 20 seconds to talk about Modric, who I'll miss, a 37-year-old maestro. I say it right? Close.
Maestro.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Maestro, 5'7". There's no reason that this guy should be as good as he is. When he started his career, he was told that he was small or that he didn't have what it takes physically to run a midfield. And that's what he does. And that's what he's continued to do for the past at least decade. Yeah. So I'm going to miss seeing him play for Croatia. And he can be in the category as one of the best midfielders to ever do it.
Yeah, with Argentina, just building off Ollie's point, goals in transition. The first goal, the penalty was given 14 seconds after Croatia thought they deserved a corner kick from a goal kick, 14 seconds down the field, penalty given. 18 seconds, the second goal comes after a Croatia corner kick. And then 15 seconds after a long throw in their own half, Argentina goes to score the other way. I mean, this isn't Croatian football. They were exceptionally poor today, completely outplayed. Are Argentina a team of destiny? Perhaps, Andy. They've been that good over the last 2-3 years. They've evolved. They can play different ways. They went from playing in the last game with 5 at the back. Then they play a 4-4-2 in this game. They're tactically flexible. They're deep at right positions. They've improved as this tournament's gone on. Fernandes and McAllister have come to this team and completely changed Argentina. Alvarez has been suitable, much better than Lautaro Martinez looked in this tournament. Team of destiny? I think so. I think the football world is cheering for it. Lionel Messi going out as a world champion.
The show continues for Lionel Messi and Argentina, but to your point, Jordan, the curtain falls on Luka Modric and Croatia. Who will Argentina face in the final? Will it be France or Morocco? Let's preview that other semifinal coming up next here on Good Night Qatar. Welcome back to Good Night Qatar. We have another semi-final to go. Who will face Argentina in the ultimate final? France taking on Morocco, 2 p.m. Eastern. Here's Moroccan midfielder Elias Sher about his manager.
I think he is the best possible man to take us as far as possible. And it's not only about football, it's also in life. I think he teaches a lot of things outside of football in life with our wives, with our parents, religion, whatever. Whenever you have a problem, you can go to him, and he will be your dad, your big brother in that moment, outside of being a coach. So I think he's the best man at the moment, and we all wish him the best because he truly deserves the best.
Wow, I think tomorrow he plays Shaira.
Merci mon petit.
Those are the comments that get you into the starting 11. I love you, man. You're in. And we welcome you back in, Andy, Jordan, Wheels, and Ollie. And here's the thing, gentlemen, here on One Soccer, we cover the Canadian Premier League. So I want to do a little bit of a parallel here, because heading into the final, when we were talking a lot about Atletico Ottawa, is about the defensive style that they played. And all we kept saying was, how do you get the team to buy into something like that? Because man, does it ever take effort. And even when we had Drew Becky on, who has now since retired and called it a career, he's like, listen, it wasn't easy. And there were days where, you needed to convince yourself that what the coach was telling us was going to get results. And they ended up making, it to the CPL final, ran into an orange brick wall, though that's for sure in Forge FC. But I guess the point I'm trying to get to here, Jordan, is, as a player, how difficult is it for a coach to get a team to buy into that kind of system? It's not sexy. It ain't pretty. You're not going and scoring goals and having all kinds of offensive glory, but at least it gets you into the semifinal of the World Cup and possibly the final.
It's extremely difficult, Andy, to get everyone on the same page, and not just playing defensive football, but all these guys on Morocco, they're playing at top clubs around the world, around Europe. And they have their own styles. So to break that and to have a team and say, hey, you're going to play like the Moroccan way, you're going to play the way that I would like you to play, it has to come down to one key component that I think makes or breaks managers in today's day and age. I think more than ever, players have their own identity or their own philosophy of how they want to play. And you see it all the time. Once you lose a dressing room as a manager, your job is basically done. Like, pack up. If you don't have guys working for you or believing in what you say and don't want to grind and work every day for you, it's not going to work. So Regragui, I say his name, Moroccan manager, what he's done, that Regragui, what he says, what is good and now is great is his man management skills, having everyone fighting for a squad. Like, this is the difference. If you can believe in a manager and you can look at him and say that he's like a brother or like a dad, there's something to fight for. So you forget about your club. You forget about anything. It's obviously everyone wants to represent their country, but to do it in a way and to be on the same page and to play hard-nosed football is not easy to do. So it's very difficult. And that's why Morocco has the respect of many people, because to get all these superstars in their own right or very good players at certain clubs, big clubs around Europe, and they're out here grinding and playing maybe an unattractive way, but it's working. It's something to be seen.
Well, this is interesting because they're going up against a powerhouse in France. And as I mentioned, Ottawa ran up against an orange brick wall. I don't know, Ollie, do you think they're going to run up against a blue brick wall here? What can we learn from Morocco and maybe being able to get the job done?
Yeah, well, to build on what Jordan was saying, well, I will say, first of all, I think this is easier to do at a tournament where you play up to 7 games compared to playing 38 games or whatever in a league. I think it makes this kind of approach a bit more realistic. But yeah, to build on what Jordan was saying, I think a lot of it is about culture. And you heard it in that press conference there. It's about treating the players as human beings, building that trust, love for your teammates and for each other in a way that I think gives the players just that little bit extra willingness to go the extra mile, to do things they might not normally do. We've seen a little bit with Canada, I think, during World Cup qualifying, where they had this sense of togetherness. They had this sense of a purpose bigger than themselves, and they were willing to do things that I don't think you see some of those players do for their clubs in terms of their work ethic. So it's incredibly impressive with this Morocco team, because it's not just a team of grinders, right? Of like utility players. Hakim Ziyech, Achraf Hakimi, Nusayr Mazraoui, like these are world-class players. Boufal was seen as a guy who was super talented, but a bit inconsistent, couldn't really be relied upon at Southampton. These guys are all chipping in. Like Ziyech is following the opposition fullback into defensive positions. That I think speaks to the culture they've created and the way that group is just completely together.
But that unity, I mean, Halilhodžić, their former head coach, it was a tumultuous error where 2 of his best players, Ziyech and Mazraoui, refused to play for country. Like, they stepped away. There's a balancing act there, right? Like, you need to convince your team of the cause and you need to keep your stars on board. And that's what he's been able to do. It's really interesting, Andy, because the conversation today about Gareth Southgate's future that's going on in the English media right now, there's this push that the next manager has to be English. I don't know if that has to be the case. John Herdman, an Englishman, has done this in Canada and brought this group together with his brotherhood because he understands the climate and he understands his players. That's what I think is more essential than anything else. Where Greggy, like, he's born in France. Like, more than half of this Moroccan team is born outside the country, but he's captivated this team and brought them together through this family-like atmosphere. Them all kind of coming together about what it means to have Moroccan ancestry and what it means to be Moroccan. So he's being able to tap into that and get his star players on board. That is half the battle. Can they beat France? France is built a completely different way. A team of personalities. Sometimes they've been divisive over the course of their career. But look, Didier Deschamps, he's won a World Cup and he's not making changes. They made one substitution against England. One. That's it. He's riding that starting 11. You know what the team's going to look like. You know the one of the two players that are coming on. And, you know, on paper and in practice, France is the better team here. So is that mentality, all that rah-rah stuff that we're kind of rallying around Morocco about, is that enough to get them through this difficult game? That's what we're going to see play out over the course of Wednesday.
Managers and their nationalities, that's an interesting topic. And I have a feeling we're going to dip into that before we say Merry Christmas. But we have to dip into another storyline that's been making headlines, and that's on the American team. So we'll jump into that next year on Good Night Qatar. What did Greg Berhalter have to say? What was Gio Reyna's response to it? And what do the guys think when it comes to the players' playing time at the World Cup? Welcome back. You've probably heard the story by now. Greg Berhalter was talking about a player at the World Cup whose effort wasn't there to the point where he needed to apologize to his teammates. It was something that went down behind the scenes. We later find out it's Gio Reyna. And a lot of people were asking, guys, why isn't Gio playing? Why didn't we see a lot of him? Now we seem to be getting that story. But the big question here, Wheels, is when you are in a situation like that where you're at the World Cup, what do you think is the best thing for a coach to do? Do you still play the player that gives you the best chance to win, or do you hold them accountable for their actions, even if it is the World Cup?
I think you can do both. You need your best players playing for you, but they need to be there needs to be buy-in as well. That's what's crazy about this story, Andy. It's fine that this happened behind closed doors. Quite frankly, this happens in a lot of team environments. Most teams go through this sort of thing, but why now? Why does this come out now? I want to give Berhalter the benefit of the doubt because he clearly has a good feel of this group and this team. And I'm not someone that doesn't think that a 20-year-old player, you know, despite how good he is, shouldn't be criticized either. I'm cool with that. I'm a little bit surprised it's Reyna, considering his dad was the consummate professional by all accounts and what his career, you know, was built about. He's at Borussia Dortmund, a very good club as well. And it doesn't seem to be an issue there. But what's to be gained about saying this now once the World Cup's done? And what does this mean for the future of the program? Like, the player is going to play for the U.S., but is there going to be a little bit of mistrust built in? Like, we've already been there with Weston McKennie. I don't know why you need to open up these wounds post-World Cup. It doesn't make any sense to me.
That's the thing for me. Like, I have no problem with Reyna being disciplined or criticized if he doesn't act in the right way. And I think his teammates probably quite likely feel the same way too. But is it not a bit of a mistake and a bit self-indulgent, to be honest, for Greg Berhalter to be making comments about a World Cup that has just happened at a leadership conference like a week after the tournament? Like 5 years from now, fine, tell that story. But like this soon, and everyone is going to know who the player you're talking about is, even if you keep it anonymous, that's a mistake in my opinion. And it is going to be really interesting now to see. I don't know if Greg Berhalter wants to stay or go back into club football, but it feels hard for him to continue with that kind of relationship with a key player.
Quickly, I'll just say, when you lose the trust of your players in some way, shape, or form, you lose the dressing room, and they're not going to fight for you the same way. So it was silly to do.
Yeah, and maybe I wonder if he was just getting pushed because everyone wanted answers on Reyna, like push, and he kind of was vague about it, but we all, to your point, knew who he was talking about. Reyna, for what it's worth, did come out and did admit that the effort wasn't there, that he was down in the dumps when he found out that he wasn't going to have much of a role, but that's something that a young player needs to learn from. But I think what we're all discussing here is why make it public? because we like to talk about it on this show.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.